Right. Hey everyone, I'm Klloo. So, with the keynote speech right around the corner, I thought we'd do a smidge more speculating, or at least discussing, right, what we know currently about high seas. Now, obviously, we can't exactly expect everything to be revealed at the keynote speech, but still, there's some juicy stuff that I would like to hear, but obviously the brunt of it is going to be maintained in secrecy until we get to the world premiere. But nonetheless, if you have something in mind that you think you'd like to hear, or you think we will hear, feel free to let me know. But starting off, let's dive into the treasure pack. So, a thought crossed my mind, right? So the treasure packs are a new way to deliver a chase card of a box, right, so to speak. It's a 90 card set. It features 11 marvels, 4 legendaries, 52 pirate booty, 14 commons, and 9 puzzle pieces. Now, in addition to the 90 card set, we are getting 43 different lost treasures to discover, which is an insane amount of cards for a 3-card pack to deliver. So if any of these are, vital to play, this is obviously a huge misstep. So my expectation is that is not what LSS would do, but rather, what if? What if the treasure pack served as a medium to give us much needed reprints? So obviously reprints and access to certain cards has been a big talk lately. So what if, right? What if the 43 different lost treasures were a way to give us generics, right? So currently there are 52 generic Majestics. Now, my count might be off, but I'm pretty sure it's 52. If we look at the ban cards, there's 2, Tome of Ferendale, Art of War. With the Hunted, we got 3, plus CNC as a reprint, so call that 4. There are 5 Carnival Majestics, and then in Dynasty there are 3 Imperial items. So, in other words, to me, those are the cards that would be excluded, right, if this was a reprint slot. So, to get to that number of 43 lost treasures, well, we could take the current 52 Majestics, get rid of the ban cards, get rid of the Hunted and the CNC reprints, and then get rid of the Imperial items. And that does leave exactly 43 Majestics that could feature as lost treasures, right? And we'd have that spread. We'd have ones that aren't so desirable. Granted, I'd highly expect them all to obviously be alt art. Now, Rainbow Foil is doable. Cold Foil is a bit harder because there are cards that feature in, say, the Judge packs or promos here and there, so you couldn't see them as Cold Foils. But alt art Rainbow Foil chase pieces, with obviously the 17 Grail cards being something like Inline Strike, right at the top. Imagine a 1/1 Inline Strike. That would be absolutely insane. And overall, the purpose of this would be to essentially give us chase variants of these generics. And then if you want the, accessible version, you take your chase variant and hopefully exchange it for 1 to 2 or maybe even a playset of the normal or lowest variant of that Majestic. So I think using the treasure pack as this medium to give us reprints, right, is kind of directly in line with what LSS does want to do, right? They don't want to reprint for the sake of reprinting, so they don't want to just pop certain Majestics into sets. They want to deliver it through a medium such as this. So yeah, the treasure pack being reprints, I could definitely kind of see that happening, and it would be something to, announce and look forward to. Now, in terms of rarity, right? For comparison, Majestics are 1 in 4. The treasure pack is at least 6 times that, right? So, sorry, lost treasure is at least 6 times that. A treasure pack is exactly 6 times that, but we don't know the ratio of lost treasure to pulling, say, a cold foil, a marvel, or, say, a legendary cold foil if they do come in cold foil. So, generally speaking, right, having all of these reprints 6 times rarer than just usual Majestics, I think would be the correct way to deliver them, right? Again, they'd be the chase variant that you could then hopefully exchange to a lesser variant. Now, counter to that, right? If these were cards that we want to play with, right? So everyone gets their box, everyone gets 1 pack, right? 1 treasure pack, they crack it, and all of a sudden we need 1 to 3 copies of these lost treasure cards for X pirate deck, right? That would be a colossal nightmare. There is no fundamental way to easily collect sets of the 43 lost treasures, let alone obviously the 17 unique, if they are truly unique, as well as the just 90 cards that are appearing in the treasure pack. That is so scarce in comparison to, again, the highest rarity, right? So, yeah, fingers crossed, it is something like that. Now, obviously, it would also work if it was just reprints in general. It doesn't have to be generic reprints, but again, looking at the numbers, taking out what we've gone most recently and cutting some here and there, right? Essentially twisting the numbers. It does kind of make sense, but, it could be our Codex reprint, it could be Lion Strike, could be Assassin cards that are going to be much needed, could just be upgraded variants of Necromancer cards to, again, reduce the pressure on that. But I do ultimately think that the treasure pack would be at least variants of cards within high seas, or, to the better extent, right, at least to me, reprints of much needed cards. So, yeah, there's my my new theory for treasure packs. Again, could be something to reveal at the keynote, but ultimately it's probably something that would be held close to chest regardless of whether or not they are reprints or just really fancy lost treasure. But yeah, the notion of them being grails, to me, obviously, the thought of grail goes back to, Majestics and these early game cards like Inline Strike that have become these big icons. Now, in terms of rarity, there are some other things to go over, right? So cold foils. Cold foils are missing from the rarity distribution. We have our rainbow foil, rare or higher, common, basic, and then basic/expansion, marvel, or legendary, but no mention of a cold foil, right? Yeah, so ultimately, it does seem like the cold foil, or at least the base versions of cold foils, commons, rares, have been moved to the treasure pack, hence why you get either a cold foil or a lost treasure, although, again, that cold foil most likely includes your marvel, right? But it does sort of make sense, right? It helps sort of redefine loose packs. It's not going to be the cold foil, but it can still be the other chase elements, and then, again, just condense it all into the treasure pack. So I do expect some sort of mention, right, towards these rarity changes by LSS in the keynote speech. But then we also do have the expansion slot, right? So expansion slot card, legendary rarity card, or marvel rarity card. Again, no mention of cold foil. Now, we expect either Inline Strike or Codex of Rarity to kind of feature as a legendary reprint, similar again to our Command and Conquer through the Hunted, right? I would steer more towards Codex of Rarity, the idea being that we just had an assassin set, we had Misfowl a little bit ago, so Codex is getting even more demand upon it, so it being a reprint along with Ranger being a heavy focus in high seas does sort of make sense, and then Inline Strike just being the notion, right? Now, Inline Strike does have some other interesting synergy, right? Because we, of course, have our mysterious symbol. So, yeah, what could this be? Well, there's 3 working ideas that I subscribe to, at least. Tap, sync, or flip. Now, if it was sync, that would be the perfect way to essentially print a chase variant of Inline Strike featuring the symbol so that we can understand it clearly. But we can, play fill in the blank, so to speak. So imagine all these cards if they were tap. For instance, action, tap, destroy gold. Once per turn instant, tap a cog you control. When this defends, you may tap an ally you control. Attack, tap this, right? Instant, tap, board the ship, tap an ally you control. So tap does make the most sense across all these cards. When it comes to sync, we get a little bit more ambiguous, right? For the heroes, sync what? It doesn't exactly specify. It works for the cog, it works for the ally cards, but for the heroes, it's a bit less clear. And then in terms of flip, which is my personal cope, if you will, right? Just to be a wow factor, right? Imagine, again, the heroes, you flip them over, has some other effect on the back. It shuts you out of their passive abilities, which does seem kind of strong. So obviously you want to meet those checks first, then do the flip effect, if you will. And, again, could be a ship on the other side, could be a cannon on the other side, could be something interesting. And then for the allies, similar as well. You tap them over and they have a flip side, right? Instead of Chum having the action in instant, he just has a different action, if you will. So yeah, I do think those 3 words do work. Tap obviously being the one that fits all. Flip coming in second in terms of wording, and then sync being ultimately a bit more ambiguous. But at the very least, I do expect us to find out what the symbol means, right? Especially if it is going to be a changing to rules in the keynote speech. Now, aside from High Seas, we obviously have our Mastery Pack Guardian coming up. 140 cards, the majority are brand new, mostly for Guardian, and Crack Shuffle Play. Now, I would highly expect that majority is actually just really the majority, and we get the filler generics in sort of a draft sense, so that we can make use of Crack Shuffle Play. But what about the heroes, right? We expect Valda, right, as this medium. She could also appear in an armory deck for LSS to give us a copy of her. And in all honesty, that would kind of also fit, right? We get Valda Armory deck just before we get the Mastery Pack Guardian. But I do think the breakdown of it being Valda, Victor, and Betsy does make a little bit of sense, right? We have our 3 key keywords, Crush, Clash, and Wager, right? So we can sort of split the cards within them. And then obviously Betsy and Victor do kind of need a bit more support to really get them going. Betsy especially. So yeah, I do kind of expect it to sort of follow this trend where Mastery Pack will be, again, a main tool for LSS to, in a supplemental sense, print and create cards to help the toolkits of struggling heroes, as well as maybe throwing in a new one, right? So yeah, Valda, Victor, Betsy, that is my guess, and that is, again, something that I do kind of see could be revealed, along, of course, with the roadmap. So we have our roadmap from our last keynote, right, at Worlds. So this gives us all the way up to August being that Mastery Pack Guardian. So what about September, October, November, and December? Well, I'd expect more armory decks, right? Because it seems to be this sort of trend now that they're really up and running. we get our armory decks, our set, armory decks, our mastery pack, armory decks, and then another set, right? So September, I'd expect another armory deck. October, another armory deck, probably in Origins, right? Probably expect one of them a year. Again, this could be our tool for Valda if it's not a simple armory deck to go along with the mastery pack, or to be honest, my better guess would be it either being Dromai or Viz, right? And then our set 17 being Savage Lands in November, holiday break from December, right? I think makes the most sense. It's still, I don't know if LSS care too much about the, holiday spending metric, right? Granted, there'll be people, that do buy Flesh and Blood, but it's not really a traditional gift in the sense of most toy companies, right? Because I would highly, obviously, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, they hit that market hard, right? But yeah, I'd expect this to be sort of the running mentality, where again, we get these supplemental products that fill in a lot of gaps. We get more armory decks, we get more mastery packs, right? I really sincerely hope that mastery pack is a yearly endeavor, right? But still, that is a lot, right? That means overall, throughout this year, we will have gotten 5 armory decks, 3 sets, and our mastery set, which is beautiful. Again, this is really getting LSS up into speed with managing and sort of helping along every single class in the game, and let alone a majority of heroes, right? We will get to the point, hopefully, where our Living Legend board does feature the majority of heroes, which would be absolutely fantastic. So this is sort of the timeline that I am expecting. In terms of Savage Lands, right, we have Brute is the lowest hero count class, right? It is also kind of one of the lowest set featured classes as well. Obviously, Ranger gets bumped up to 4 and 4 in terms of this table. Necromancer is obviously a bit shy. Illusionist being the other one, right? Because we have basically Old Prism and Dromai out, right? So only 2 pilots, Enigma getting close. But again, Illusionist could be handled through an Armory deck Origins for Dromai, right? That would definitely make sense. Wizard is the other, therefore, lowest card count current class, right, if you will. So yeah, either Brute, lowest class, or Wizard, lowest card count. So definitely think it's finally time for our Savage Lands, and then that sort of frees up Monarch next year to not be Levia focused, right? I'd expect us to go Shadow Runeblade, I'd expect us to go Shadow Necromancer, right? I think that'd be a nice 1-2 combo. Again, get Necromancer as a class up to speed, because they do definitely want alternative pilots, if you will, right? Heroes to play, different sort of mechanics to make the class a bit more interesting, unique, and a little bit more desirable to play, right? So yeah, that's what makes most sense to me. That is my last round of speculation till we get the keynote speech, and then boy oh boy, is there going to be a lot more, right? So yeah, looking forward to find out what we find out. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.